Good morning. Glad to get together here, and what a great week we had. I'm just still thinking about last week's missions conference and looking at our missions conference book here, and hope you got one of these. And again, I know some of you are not, maybe health or whatever's not got you've not gotten out during the week, or maybe in the last recently weeks, whatever. But get one of these. And if you're a member of our church giving to these missionaries through your missionary giving, I want to encourage you, if you can't get here, give us a call me, or one of us could drop one of these off to you, mail it to you. But it just got page after page of these great missionaries serving around the world, just wonderful people, some brand new. Here's the Perez family, brand new, just going to Thailand from Mexico. And their first language is Spanish, but they're learning Thai and going to Thailand. And then there's veteran missionaries like Paul and Jolie Sock. They've been in Poland, I'm sure 20 years, 25 years, and all in between. This page happens to have two of our own missionaries, going, Danielle and Nate and Marissa. And to take this book and take time to pray and to think about our missionaries, and to take a little time and consider, go before the throne of grace on behalf of these who are around the world, and they've got needs and they've got burdens, and of course it's an evil world. That's just in general. It's an evil world of the unsaved, but they don't have anywhere to go. At least we have the Lord to turn to in the darker days. But this poor world that we're in, the unsaved of the world, they've got no hope. They have no one to turn to. And that's why we send our missionaries carrying the gospel around the world, that they might be able to open a Bible and find hope in the person of Jesus Christ. First, hope for salvation, and then hope for the assurance that he'll walk with them through the troubled world we're in, and that there's a happily ever after at the end of the story. And so take time, please, get one of these books, take time to pray. I would encourage you, maybe keep it near where your Bible is. Mine at home is right on my desk, just like this one is here. And I can sit down at my desk to read my Bible and just flip it open and take a couple of these pictures, look at them, think about them, pray for them, and ask God's blessing on them. So very, very important. But all that being said, I wanted to read a couple of quick stories. And this is from Pastor Mike Ray's book, If They Can Make It, You Can Too. And there's people who've had burdens you and I can't even begin to relate to, struggles. I love the story of Fanny Crosby, but there's so many like that. I'm just going to read a couple very early ones. 1300s, John Wycliffe. He was the first to translate the Bible from Latin to English. He opposed the Catholic Church teachings years after his death. He's so bothered the Catholic Church and the Church of England by his preaching. See, he wanted the Bible in the hands of the common man. He didn't want it just in Latin, where only a few educated priests could take it and decide what people were going to hear. He wanted them to have a Bible in their hand. And he made people so mad, and finally they killed him. And but his writings and his influence went on and on. And so finally, years after his death, they were so angry at him. He's already gone, but God wouldn't let his testimony die. Like the Bible says, he being dead yet speaketh. They dug his bones up and they burned them publicly, and they took the ashes of his bones and scattered them in the river, so that there'd be no burying place for John Wycliffe. And what a story. As the story goes, the testimony of Wycliffe, along with his ashes, scattered down that river to the oceans of the entire world. Another, John Huss, a Bohemian reformer, and he helped pave the way 100 years before the Reformation. He cried out against the sins of the church, the clergy, and he was a professor at the University of Prague. His ministry began in the late 1300s, so he was in that same era with John Wycliffe. He exalted the scriptures. He was excommunicated from the church in 1410. In 1412, he called the Pope the Antichrist. And he just took a Bible and preached it and got it out in the hands of the common man. He was imprisoned, labeled a heretic. You see, if you can't beat somebody with logic, you put a slanderous name on them. And that's what is going on in our culture. You're a racist, a misogynist, you're a homophobe or whatever. They put a nasty label on you. The reason they label people and call names is because they have no brains, they have no logic, they have no clear thinking where they can say, here's what's right, here's what's wrong. And so they turn to riot, as we were in the Bible study on Wednesday night, Acts 19, and in that area several times they turned to riot and violence because they couldn't logic. They couldn't go before the law and be reasonable. They had to rely on emotions. And so he was in prison, labeled a heretic, and finally burned at the stake. And his last words, supposedly, his last words were, "What I have taught with my lips, I now seal with my blood." And these are guys, many, many men and women in that book and others, their faith made all the difference in the world. They just decided, this is what I believe, and this is where I stand. I recently wrote just a little short pamphlet, and these aren't actually out and around much yet, but it's a little pamphlet, Things I Confirmed in the Valley. There's a lot of people, and I don't look down on anybody who responds poorly in trials, because it's a reality. Trials test you. Job, he got pretty down, and he threw out some comments that he probably wished he hadn't. Jeremiah at one point in a dungeon said, God is more powerful than me. He's deceived me, and I can't fight him, but I'm done. I'm done preaching. He said, I'm finished. And then a little while later, he said, his word was in my heart as a burning fire I cannot contain. And you can get down. And but this is just a list of just a handful of little truths about things that we should confirm when we're in the valley. And I've seen people walk out on everything from their marriage to their church to their Christianity to you name it, when there's difficulties and trials. Job said of God, when he hath tried me, when he's tested me, he said, I'll come forth as gold. He said, when this thing's over, I'm going to be better at the end. And well, that's a big thing to say when you're in the valley. And this will get out around church before long. There's a couple of odds and ends we're working on, but some things I confirmed in the valley. No matter how dark the valley is, soul winning's still right. I may be too sick to go soul winning. I may be too heartbroken to go knock on a door, but it's still right to go soul winning. I confirm that holiness is still a biblical way of life, that we ought to be a holy people, and that a holy, separated life, separated from this world, that's Bible. And my heartbreak, the loss of my marriage, the loss of my child, the loss of my job or whatever, those things don't change what the Bible says. And just a list of simple things. The great men of God are still great. And I'm not going to throw out that term, man of God. You know, the Bible says that the man of God may be perfect, thoroughly furnished unto all good works. Talking about the Bible, Paul writes to Timothy, and then another place Paul writes, but thou, O man of God, flee these things and follow these things. And I just, whatever difficulties we go through, I still believe God lifts up godly, great people to lead us and to help us. And just because the world's an ugly place, just because we've got a president who I think our political leadership today has no use for the Constitution, the Declaration, the Bill of Rights, or any of the things that America stands for, I still love America. And just because some leaders turn bad, I'm not giving up on the system. I'm still an American. I still love the red, white, and blue, and I still love the Bill of Rights, and I still love all that we are as a nation. And this craziness of throwing out the whole nation, and to think that a bunch of people who can't even get a job can figure out how to create a better nation, they're nuts. But anyway, I'm going to be in Romans chapter 8 for a minute or two this morning, and I want to just take a moment and mention a couple of simple things about God's purpose with the circumstances around us. Now, whether it be Richard Wurmbrand, a Romanian pastor who found himself imprisoned by the communists for many years, in and out of prison, and many humiliating, shameful things done to him, but he came out the other side a national hero, a global hero to Christians. Books have been written about him. He's been interviewed everywhere. Millions of people have heard his testimony, and his books have sold. His book, Tortured for Christ, the first one I got when I was first in Bible college. And when he hath tried me, Job said, I'll come forth as gold. And the devil can try to do what he wants, but I know this, God doesn't die when trials come. And God has a purpose. Now, most of us that are ministry minded, we like Sunday school, we like the buses, the jails, the restaurants. We want to be a part of the church ministry. We want to be a help, and we want to invest in others. Most of us think this way. We think, I want to use my life to help these people get to know the Lord better. And that's a very noble cause, and it's a very appropriate cause. But then when a trial comes, we think, no matter how this trial affects me, I've got to keep helping people. I'm going to keep running a bus route. I'm going to keep helping in a rest home. I'm going to keep singing in the choir, or whatever. I'm not going to let these trials keep me from ministering to others, because we think that our life is here to minister. And it is. Jesus said, even the Son of Man has come not to be ministered unto, but to minister and to give his life a ransom for many. Jesus said in another place, the greatest is the servant of all. And so we should. The very mentality of the child of God is to serve others. But something I think sometimes we miss is that here we are, and we're busy trying to serve God's people, reach out to the world around us and be a blessing to people. I just got off the phone with a guy back east whose son in this area is having a heartache, and talking to a daddy who's too far away to help. And he said, if there's anything you can do to help. And I assured him I'd love to help, and I'm going to try. And if I'm welcomed, I will do what I can to be a help. So it's you and me trying to minister, whether it be buying some groceries for somebody, or giving someone a ride to church, or teaching a class, or whatever, just investing, passing out a gospel tract. But what we don't think of so often is, here I am, busy trying to serve others, and this burden, this trial, this difficult time comes, and we forget that God is working on me. And I remember Sharon O'Brien, and years ago, Sharon O'Brien, when Sharon got saved, she got a full dose of Jesus, and not talking theologically there, but talking in the worldly sense. She got a big hold of the Lord, and her husband Don, and they got so involved, helped so many people, taught, and very, very instrumental. They worked with the Pathfinders, our educable slow ministry, for a long time, and no one's ever taken her place. I pray, it's on my prayer list, that God would give me someone to pick up the baton and reach out to the people with special needs, and that they would have Sunday school geared right around them, just like we have Sunday school geared around children or teens, that there would be Sunday school geared. I'd love for a while we had a deaf interpreter, and I've prayed that God would give us a deaf interpreter. There's a lot of deaf, and they live in a lonely world, and I'd love to have them be welcomed into our church ministries and all. But here we are serving. Here's these we're trying to serve. And these trials, we look at these trials as a challenge that we're going to keep serving in spite of these trials. But what we don't always remember is that these trials are working on us. And that's where Sharon O'Brien comes in. One New Year's Eve, Sharon got some of the senior citizens together, and they got a big drum and a funny costumes. It was a skit night and a fun night. And they got up on the platform singing this song, He's Still Working on Me. And I may not be all I'm supposed to be, but he's still working on me. It was funny, it was spiritual. And that's sometimes what we forget. It's not just God working through me to help others. It's God working through trials to work on me. Look at Romans chapter 8. And most of us are familiar with Romans 8:28, that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. So you get saved, you get a heart for God, nothing's going to enter your life, but that God is going to be right there, and he'll use that to help you, and it's going to turn out good. But we don't put verse 29 in there. For whom he did foreknow, them he also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. You see, when God saved me, he ordained these events that they would make me more Christ-like. Paul said later on, I travail in pain for you until Christ be formed in you. I hurt for you. I pray for you. I late night teaching the Bible to you, and I'm gonna long after you until Christ is literally formed in you. And this whole Christian life, it's yes, it's about me serving others, but I'm not all I'm supposed to be yet. And so God brings difficulties of all kinds into our lives, and most of them we don't like. You know, like a good trainer. If you got a trainer helping you with exercise or weight or physical therapists. We have several physical therapists in our church, and I think those are sadistic people. They make your bones turn ways that don't feel good, and they stretch muscles and tendons ways that make you want to scream, and oh, it's just a miserable. It's like a dentist. Who wants to go to the dentist? Nobody says, I can hardly wait to go to my physical therapist and have him move my leg or my arm some direction that's going to make me want to cry. But that's what God does. God says, I'd like to make you better. I'd like to help you grow. And see, all the way up till we breathe our very last breath, excuse me, God is going to be working on us. Now, I mentioned this some weeks ago, but Hudson Taylor spent decades in China, the most amazing ministry in the late 1800s in China. He personally oversaw over 1,000 preachers in China, brought 1,000 preachers in, not counting the Chinese preachers. Huge ministry, the China Inland Mission. And he had trials. He was sick often. He had trials. He was beaten mercilessly. And many stories in his life. He buried a little girl, and that was a trial. Then he buried the other daughter. That was a trial. Then he buried his wife, and that was a trial. And he was through these battles. And in each of those battles, here Hudson Taylor is trying to reach these Chinese people. But God was using these trials to reach Hudson Taylor and to conform him to the image of Christ. Now, as Hudson Taylor grew more frail and way up in years, the people, the family, and friends moved him, I want to say it was to Switzerland, if I'm remembering right, to a place where he could be cared for and regain some health, better climate, more sanitation out of the inland of China. And he was isolated from his work. And he was alone a lot. He sat quiet a lot. He wrote, but you could only write so long. He read, but you could only read so long. And he said this, I was reading his biography. I've got a digital one on my phone, and that way, whenever I could stop, I'd read another page of it. And I was getting to the end of the biography, and Hudson Taylor, that great preacher, he said, the greatest trial of my entire life was having to be idle and feeling useless. When I lay there, unable physically to go do the work of God, unable mentally and verbally to be able to communicate with my church members. There's no, 1800s, there was no computers, no internet, no telephones. And he said that was the hardest trial. You see, here's Hudson Taylor wanting to minister to people, and God said, Hudson Taylor, you're becoming very Christ-like. But I've got one more thing I want you to go through. I want you to go through one more trial. Isolation, loneliness, weakness of body, frailness of spirit. And God brought that last trial into Hudson Taylor's life. And from there, he stepped into eternity and Christ-likeness. And I just want to encourage you, the difficulties, the awkward, the frustrating, those things don't happen to us without God. It's God who worketh in you, both to will and to do of his good pleasure, Paul wrote to the Philippian church. It's God's working in you. And God is, you're not out there all. You may feel alone. And Job and David both wrote about, I don't know where God is. If I could find God, I'd sure like to get some answers. And I know some of you feel that way. And we've got some dear friends who are wrestling through loneliness and convalescent homes and different things. And good, godly people, closed up at home and not able to get to church and all. And boy, I just want you to know, God's not done. Like Sharon O'Brien and her marching band, hilarious. I could just see him on the platform now. He's still working on me, and he is. And he's a good God. And you could trust him with your life. You could trust him with your death. And he is worth trusting. Hope you have a great day, great Friday. And I want to encourage you, pray about our soul winning tomorrow morning and our Sunday school, our buses, our church service on Sunday, the jail and rest home. Pray about our budget as we step into this new year. Want to keep the bills paid. And of course, there's people taking their equity and out of their homes and running off to the rest of the country. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them. I just feel like this is where God has me. I didn't come here because the economy was good. I came here because it was the will of God. So money didn't move me here. I don't think money can move me away from here, but I don't begrudge anybody. But you pray that God would bless our church budget, bless our missions budget. Hope you've made a commitment, filled out a pledge card to our missions program. If you are not attending, maybe you're watching our services, send something in on a weekly or monthly basis to our missionaries. Just put it in an envelope, mark it missions, and we just throw all the money into one big missions account. That we have a commitment we make monthly to all of our missionaries, and then we hear about special needs. We're able to send money here and there to help out and to meet people's needs, and you'll be a blessing, I can assure you, to the work of God. And thank you for your faithfulness. Look forward to a great weekend together. Hope you have a great Friday.